Hello and welcome to this coffee shop lesson where we're looking at the writing part of the written exam. So sit back, enjoy your cup of coffee, and I will catch up with you at the very end. Students working with us, Verba International in Russia, can choose to take either the written exam or the spoken test. Now, together they form the international diploma, but being able to take the test separately is fantastic for student development as well as you, the teachers. But today we are very much looking at part of the overall written test. The writing paper as a whole includes three parts: listening, reading, and writing. So today we are purely going to focus on the writing part. In this coffee shop lesson, we will look at two aspects: the structure of the exam and areas where students can make very quick and simple improvements to their marks. We will look in the future at other ways of developing their writing skills. But today we're going to look at those very quick wins which are important just coming up to an exam. The length of the actual writing tasks depends on the student's ability. In other words, where they sit in the Common European Framework of Reference. Clearly, an A1 student who can only put together very basic phrases and simple sentences will be able to write far less than a very competent C1 student. So here we see the times, and as you would expect, these naturally increase as students go up the Common Framework of Reference levels. Generally, though, what isn't a problem are the timings. Certainly at lower levels, A1 through to B1, then candidates quite frequently finish early. At B2, time and C1, time tends to be about right. So it's not a speed writing competition. It is about getting down the amount of information that the task actually requires. And the students understand these tasks. From monitoring thousands of students, we see that they understand what they need, but they still make simple mistakes. So let's look at some of those and look at the structure. One of the most important tools that a student can have is their own dictionary. Firstly, it enables them to look up words that they might not understand in the question. Secondly, it gives them the opportunity to find synonyms if they need it. And of course, at the end of their writing, if they want to check the spelling of something when they're proofreading it, they can check the spelling as well. So it's critically important that students have their own dictionaries. Please stress that to the parents. And remember, of course, it can be English, it can be English Russian, Russian English, German English, if they happen to be studying in Germany, whichever nationality is their L1, they can use an L1 to English dictionary. The writing test itself is split into two parts. Task one at every level is normally transactional. That means asking for or providing information. So let's have a look at that in a moment. The first point I wish to make is that students can improve the written marks quite easily, and believe it or not, without actually learning any more English. And what I mean on this is students do need to follow the instructions. Despite the fact of being familiar with the tasks, quite frequently when I'm collecting papers and when I'm talking to the assessment team at Euroexam, one criticism is that the students don't always do what they are asked. So let's look at that. Let's look at task one at A2. Now, A1 is almost identical. The questions are slightly easier. The requirements are simpler. So it says in the rules at the top, in the instructions, answers questions 1 to 3 with 1 word, answer questions 4, 5, and 6 with 10 to 15 words. And indeed, it doesn't matter if a student writes 16, 17, 18 words, not a problem. They need to show enough language. But what we might see is something like this. What is your occupation? I am a student. This is not one word, and it's not how we would naturally fill in the form. So what the student should be writing is simple, student, one word. Now, I mentioned earlier about using a dictionary. It might be that the student doesn't know the word occupation. He or she then cannot complete that line without being able to look it up in a dictionary. So even at lower levels, dictionaries can be very, very helpful. Now, there will be occasions where the student says, I've never been to a sports club. So we do need to teach them to use their imaginations. It might be that they're asking something that they've never done. Make it up. It's not a truth test, it's writing. The other aspect is now if we look at questions 4, 5, and 6, what do you like doing in your free time? Is question 4. Playing football might be an answer. The examiner needs at least 10 words to be able to assess the student's writing skills. So it would be better, it would be correct to write something like, in my free time, I like to play in the park with my friends. That is 14 words. It fits into the 10 to 15 words. And if you are doing tasks like this, practice and insist that the students build the skills necessary and the confidence necessary to write the right number of words. In fact, you can create your own forms. You might want to create a form for a music society, as I've done there, or a birthday gift, or booking a flight. Whatever topics you are working on with your student at that moment is a great opportunity to create a form and practice again, insisting as teachers, insisting on the right amount of words. Now at B1, we've got similar instructions. Here it's a little bit freer because if we look at the questions, which I will do now, your full name might be 2 or 3 words, could be 4. Nationality, in my case, it's one word, British. What languages do you speak? And I know some of your kids are incredibly talented. It could be German, French, Russian, and English. So they may need a number of words. But look again, questions 5 to 8, 15 to 20 words. Why do we want 15 to 20? Well, the examiner needs to see enough English. And I promise you, if they write 22 words, it's not a problem. They are not penalised. But ideally 15 to 20, but if they write 21, 22, it's really not a problem. Now at B2, we move into something beyond a form. Here the candidates have got to actually write something, probably like a letter. Now the key thing here on the instructions is that the students need to know that firstly, as a guidance on words, in this case it's between 100 and 120. Again, they're not going to get penalised if they write 125. That's not a problem. The key thing is, though, they must use all the provided information, both responding to, in this case, the new regulations, and using all the information in the notes, plus making alternative suggestions. So the task here is quite detailed. It gives the opportunity for the candidates to expand and demonstrate a wide amount of a language, which of course they need to at B2. But they do need to use the notes. So when you're practicing tasks with your students, make sure they're using the notes. In task 2, there are 2 tasks. The first one was transactional. The second one is sometimes called discursive. I prefer the term free writing. It could be all sorts of things. It could be a story, letter, email. We first start with A1, task 2. In this case, it's a simple picture-inspired story, and the reason Euroexam uses pictures is because we're not trying to test the candidates' total creative skills, purely their ability to use language. So here again, if they need to look up the word for a table, nice simple one. then a Russian to English dictionary can help them. You'll also see that the story there starts in the simple past. If the students can maintain simple past, fantastic. But if they can't, that's fine. This is A1, where maybe even tenses stray. Maybe sometimes tenses are missing altogether. It asks for about 50 words, and that again is a guidance. If a student writes 45 or 60 words, they are not going to be marked down for that. Now at A2, we move into something slightly longer. So here again, we've got a choice. It's either an email or a postcard. Now the key thing to remember here, and one thing to teach, is that in English, we might write, Dear Keith, Hi Keith, Good morning Keith, something like that. Notice each of those has got a comma after it. We do not shout, Dear Keith, with an exclamation mark. Exclamation marks are Russian. English is comma. So, Dear Keith, we're writing to a friend here. So, of course, it can be informal. It could be Hi Keith. It could just be hi. So, in starting the writing task at A2, or indeed any other level, it's always a comma after the address. Just for guidance, we then start the first paragraph with a capital letter. I have been asked that quite recently. Now, how do you prepare for these exams? Well, in this case, it's A2. I happen to use Optimize. It's one of my favorite ones for teaching. There's guidance and there's these tasks throughout the lessons. And the reason I like teaching from or with good books is that we are not endlessly practicing exam tasks, although we are. We're practicing them as part of the lesson. And the good thing is practicing them as part of a lesson, it may be we have just looked at conditionals, and the letter that they're writing from the book will be based on using conditionals. It might be at a higher level we've been practicing inversions, and therefore the book will have a letter based on inversions. So exam preparation is enhancing the teaching because it's being done as part of your course material. It shouldn't be running off and doing separate exam practice tasks. Now at B1, again, we've got, in this case, it is either an email or indeed an email. So the structure, because they are talking to friends, you normally email a friend, you can be informal, you can use contractions, I've, they've, we've seen it, we enjoyed it. So we can use contractions, we can be informal, or we can be neutral. Remember, formality is not actually measured until we get to B2. But it means the students can relax in their writing. Now at B2, on the surface of it, the tasks look quite simple. In this case, we've either got an essay or an article or another option. But the key thing here at B2, we need to think about two things. We need to think about extending the language and indeed appropriate language for the given task. So if you are asked to write an online comment, that will have a different style of language, a different style of writing than the more structured essay, if we choose to do the essay form. Do remember that students will get a choice. They only do one of the particular tasks. So practice the different skills, but also use things like online resources to be able to understand what the difference in style is between an online comment, an essay, and an article, and the various other options that are likely to come up. Now, one of the problems with B2 is getting that extended language. There is guidance though. If you go onto the Euroexam's website, I'll put a link in this lesson. Then there are full articles on how to write all of those particular styles. And reading it, both you as a teacher, and of course, if your students are doing B2 or C1, they are also capable of reading it, is great preparation. But the key thing is that all levels are not focused purely on grammar, not just accuracy. They are not focused on any one aspect. But one thing we do need, particularly at B2, is a range of language. So where possible with your students, encourage them to adopt different tenses, be creative, create new language, use the inversions that we've just been talking about, use the modals, use conditionals. This shows that the candidate is able to write complex language, certainly necessary for C1 and necessary too at B2. So again, I make the point in preparation. Use the books, use what's available, use your resources to the full, use the writing tasks within those books, and this one happens to be B2. I promised you access to additional resources, and you'll find them if you go to www.euroexam.com and choose your appropriate area. In my case, it's likely to be Russia. You have a choice here. You can download a practice test. You can get tips too for both the speaking tests and, as we're looking at today, for the writing tests. And under B2 and C1 in particular, there are full knowledge-based articles about how to prepare for an essay, an article, an online comment, and so forth. So these do make excellent reading, and there's something that at the higher levels, the B2 and C1 students can read for themselves as well. So do access the Euroexam support materials. So in conclusion, firstly, ensure, particularly when it comes to filling in the form, that the students complete the tasks as requested in the instructions. Secondly, it's always good that students use their imagination. This is particularly important, again, in things like forms where they might be exposed to an application for something that they are not familiar with. If they don't have an email address, they create one. It just uses at something. If they don't have or know a phone number, it doesn't have to be their phone number. They can put any series of numbers in. Next, insist that your students get a good paper-based dictionary. It can be English or Russian English, whichever suits you. But it is critically important, right from the lowest levels where they might need to look up a simplest word, to higher levels where being able to find synonyms is incredibly useful. Then, as students go up the language skills level, then encourage them to take risks. I know Russia is very grammar focused. Students can be scared of making grammatical mistakes. However, the examiners want to see language at the appropriate level, and that means the language range. Do too remember that the exams test language skill. It's not about preparation ability. They should be doing the preparation as part of their day-to-day language development. And finally, you as teachers need to have some confidence. Your students across Russia generally achieve excellent results. And despite my tips here, the students do perform remarkably well. Typically, at the last exam, over 90% of all candidates taking the entire written test, and what I mean on that is reading, writing, and listening, actually achieved over 90% of passes. And that's absolutely fantastic, and congratulations to everyone. Well, I hope you have found the information in this short coffee shop lesson enjoyable. Hope you've also enjoyed your cup of coffee and your break. Do feel free to like and subscribe. And of course, my contact details are all on the slide as we see here. Have a fantastic day. I look forward to seeing you soon.